Well, our moms think we're funny.
Like I really don't have the energy. You know what I mean? It's like I've been drained, like emotionally, and just it's just all gone. Hey everybody, this is Turk182,
And I'm Acomi.
Woo! What's going on, Acomi?
Hey, so we just watched a movie.
Yes, we did. On second thought, maybe we should have watched Rollerball. So for years I have been telling Acomi that that we should watch Boogie Nights. I love Boogie Nights. It's one of my favorite movies. The movie's 2.5 hours long. So it's one of those that, whenever we get together and starting, either just hanging out or just doing our recording, it's like, where do we find time with everything we have to do to fit in a 2.5 hour movie? Mm-hmm. And it's just one of those things that it just never really found the opportunity to. And this weekend we've been a little more productive than we have in previous weekends. So I was like, I think we can go ahead and we can work in Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
And plus it's been so long that it was like, we need to go ahead and watch it. Just make the time and watch it. So we did. And of course I've seen it before. It's been a long time since I've seen it. But the emotional kicks, I mean, they're kind of ingrained in you. It's like, all right, so I was kind of ready for those. But this was your first time after hearing me talk about it, and what do you have to say?
I was very, very impressed with it. There are no bad actors in it. Everybody just plays their role brilliantly. I really like the cinematography. The director is very fond of using like a lot of really long uncut shots of like weaving through a crowd. Really well done. It's something that if you don't do it right, it comes off as just kind of cheap and shitty. And if you do it well, then it just looks really, really cool and like a really finely choreographed dance. And this director handled that really, really well.
Paul Thomas Anderson is a really, really good director. He's done a lot of things. I think he's the guy that directed Inherent Vice that had Joaquin Phoenix in it. That I wanted to see when it came out, and it's one of those that just kind of got by me.
Yeah.
And when it did, it kind of dropped off of my radar.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like come back up, and I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to see that. So I was like, I need to remind myself that I wanted to see this movie and check it out.
Yeah. But
he's a phenomenal director. I really like a lot of his stuff. He's incredible.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are kind of unaware, he did Boogie Nights, of course, and I mentioned Inherent Vice. He also did Magnolia. Sorry, Kevin Smith. He did the Phantom Thread with what's that guy's name? Daniel Day-Lewis, which I think was like Daniel Day-Lewis's last film. I think he was retiring after that. And that was like, I remember it being nominated for some Academy Awards. I couldn't really tell you what it won.
Yeah.
Of course, he did the movie, There Will Be Blood, that a lot of people, I never saw it. I heard a lot of people talk about it and like, it's like, we're talking about this movie being emotionally draining.
Yeah.
There Will Be Blood. They're like, if you want to watch like Daniel Day-Lewis be just a complete asshole for like 2.5 hours, that's the movie for you.
What got me with Boogie Nights is that, and we talked about this off mic, he did a really good job of making me care about every single character.
Yeah.
And, these are people in the porn industry. It doesn't have the greatest reputation as an industry. And the porn industry is full of fairly scuzzy people, love it or hate it. It's just kind of a fact about it. But the way he presented it, it's like, whether it's these people who are just kind of, they're doing it for the love of the craft, or they're doing it because they have no other options, or they are scuzzy people, you still wind up caring about pretty much everybody involved, and you wind up rooting for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't I would say that the porn industry is technically filled with scuzzy people.
I wouldn't say it's filled with them. We're saying there are some in there.
No, I was going to say that I think the movie industry as a whole is filled with some like scuzzy and kind of skeezy people.
Oh yeah,
but it's more expected in the porn industry. So, so I think more people like gravitate there because they feel like they can get away with more there because people already look down on them. So if someone cries foul, then we're like, well, you did it to yourself, right?
Right.
It's like, that's what you get for doing that. But yeah, it's interesting. So I've mentioned a couple times about that book that I have, that one by Legs McNeil, the unauthorized biography of the porn industry.
Oh yeah, the Uncensored.
Yeah, it's and watching Boogie Nights, you can see like some of the things that are in the movie that came from real life events in in the industry. And a lot of the story kind of parallels in some ways, like some of the stuff that happened with John Holmes. So, here's the story is about, this guy, Eddie from Torrance, and how, he's, got a tremendous member. And once he puts it on screen, like everybody's like, I've got to see that. And then he kind of, he becomes a big deal, and then he starts doing drugs, and then that starts to take over his life, and it affects his work, and and then things go downhill from there. And even the scene we were talking about just a minute ago with Alfred Molina, that is very, very reminiscent to the Wonderland murders that John Holmes was involved in. And I was mentioning to you that it's I've talked about this with many people before, and I think I've even mentioned it on the podcast, where it's like I'm fascinated. I have an interest. I don't want to say fascination because I think that sounds too glamorous. But I have an interest or curiosity about certain things. And one of the things I've had a curiosity about for a while was the whole Wonderland murders thing, kind of what happened. And I listened to his podcast about it. And I don't like recommending things like that because it seems like, oh, hey, you want to hear a real fucked up story that happened to a bunch of people, and it's like, hey, check this out. Hope you're entertained.
Right.
But if you want to know about that and what happened and just how horrific it was, there's a podcast about it. And then they actually talked to the two detectives that worked the case and stuff. It's pretty interesting. It goes into a lot of like John Holmes's life, like leading up to it. So one of the things about it, it's like maybe 6 or 8 parts, and it doesn't just start off with the murders. It talks about John Holmes's like his life and everything building up to when he became a porn star, and it's like his first wife that he was with when he started doing porn, and how he was I'm not call him saintly, but he was like a very naive kind of like really straight-laced guy. And then, the attention and things like that started to take over, and then the drugs got involved and all that stuff.
Right.
And so, like I say, in a lot of ways kind of parallels, Boogie Nights kind of parallels that leading up to that whole thing. What happens to Boogie Nights is much tamer than the actual Wonderland things, but so you've got that, and you've got the individual stories about people. And I think it's interesting when you look at each person, and you don't really see like technically a motivation for why they did what they did. Like, with Eddie, you get it. He's a character. So they tell you what brought him there, but you don't get that with Amber. She's there, but you know what brought her there. You don't know what brought Roller Girl there, but you know what makes her stay.
Right.
That, and even someone like Buck, who's completely out of place in the whole thing, right? Like you don't know what brought him there, but you know what makes him stay. And a part of that is this, and that we see it in like a lot of different things. You see a lot of people taking advantage of it now, which is these people that are disenfranchised,
right? Right.
And they don't have any place to go, and they don't have anybody that, that they feel that accepts them for who they are, and they wind up here, and these people accept them because they're I don't want to say lost, but they're
I think in a lot of ways they are lost, though.
Well, so they're in need of, you know, friendship and a family,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't, and even though what they're missing, each one of them is missing is something different. So it's not like I can like kind of commiserate with you, but like I know exactly how you feel because I'm in that same spot.
Right, right.
What brings them together is that they're all, you know, I guess you could say lost or missing a family, and that's what brings them together, even though it's a very unconventional one.
Right, right.
So, and so I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Even, like I said, even with someone like you see, like the main characters that are always kind of together, but then you have someone like Becky, and then Buck, who are like on the outskirts of the family, so to speak, but they're still the family.
Right, right.
Like I said, that all that being said, it's the I think that the movie, like I said, does a good job of like taking that and, like you said, like making you care about each one of the characters.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, but the whole thing about porn is a backdrop. You could actually replace that with anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a shockingly not pornographic movie.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty tame, honestly. There's some nudity, there's a lot of implied sex, but as far as like anything being super graphic, it's really not.
So the interesting thing is, it's almost like that one movie we watched, the one Let's Watch we did, where like we got a bunch of nudity up front, and then after that it was like nothing else.
Yeah.
And you get the same thing with this. You get
shit,
these.
that was that one with Ginger from Gilligan's Island.
Oh, the space vampires. Something
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
Evils of the Night.
Yeah, Evils of the Night. That was it.
Yeah. So with this one, you get a couple of like, you know, nude scenes, and then you get like some of the like snippets of the movies being shot.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, it's all just character stuff.
Yeah,
like
it dries up. It dries up in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was interesting because you know, they talk about that, the advent of you know, the VCR,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, a VHS or a Betamax, or whichever one. But it was basically the home video, and how these movies went from being in these theaters where you had to go see them, you know, and then all of a sudden you had the ability to watch it at home,
Mm-hmm.
to own it and watch it at home. And then you could watch it many times you want to. You could just watch your favorite scene, you know, whatever. And you could go to like a store or whatever it was, you know, and you could buy it. You could mail order it, and it comes in its plain brown packaging, whatever it was.
Right.
And it would actually kind of like made things better for the porn industry. Of course, in that book, when they talk about that whole era there with the VHS, and like you couldn't transport VHS tapes across state lines because it was pornographic material, and some of the laws wouldn't allow that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you had the mob influence at that time as well that were financing and bankrolling these movies. And then it's the weirdest thing, and I have to read that kind of section over again. But
Right.
They were making the movies, and then they were selling the tapes, and they were transporting them across state lines and to sell them in other places. But then they were also bootlegging their own movies,
Mm-hmm.
and selling them. Like, what, you're bootlegging your own movie to sell? Like, but you can it was weird. But they were
There's a book called Men of Tomorrow that talks about how while the mob was doing all their stuff with the porn industry, they were also basically bankrolling the comics industry.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah. So like that kind of ties in with that too. It's all really, really interesting.
What I really kind of found fascinating about that whole thing was when the FBI got involved in the porn industry. It had nothing to do with indecency laws or anything else. It was because they were going after the mob. It was like a new version of the RICO Act.
Right.
It's like they had no interest really in the porn industry at all. It was they wanted the mob.
Yeah.
So in this movie there's that whole thing where Jack's like, I make movies, and he's not saying, you know, VHS or home movies as being movies still. But of course it's brand new.
Right.
You know, and if, you know, obviously eventually he does end up doing it, and he you know, he does it, but he doesn't embrace it because, again, he's still, this is what, I think 1984 is when the movie ends. So at 1982, 1983, with the heart and the very beginning of it still, he hasn't embraced that and really seen that I can still do what I've always done.
Right.
It just is going to be shown in a theater.
Yeah, he no longer considers it an art form. And
right.
So it's a little depressing, really.
And what's funny about that is that when you're watching that and he's talking about all that stuff, the one thing is that in 1982 and 1983, you know, you did have, like, you had all kinds of VCRs or, like I said, Betamax. But those like players were expensive. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're talking like right now, say, okay, I'm going to get a Blu-ray player. It might be like $200 if you want to get a good one. But it's also going to have like, oh, it's got an app for Pandora and this and that. It's got a Netflix app. Or you can just buy just a regular like DVD player for like $50. Back then, the players themselves were like $500, you know, in the 80s. Like, who the fuck has $500 in the 80s? Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what I get paid, like, the month, you know, for the month. Right. I don't have money for that. I mean, I remember, and you're probably, since you're younger than me, you probably don't remember this at all, but I remember going to the video store. You know, this was before Blockbuster was a big thing. So, you know, the place like that, those kind of chain places, you know, they don't appear everywhere at once. So you still have your local, like, video store, right, you know, right. like Super Rockets, you know, like VHS Emporium or something. and you would rent the VCR. Yeah, yeah. And they would come in these big, hard plastic cases to protect them. And you would, like, rent the movie for, like, $5. You'd rent the player for, like, $15, you know, and you had to bring them both back in, you know, in like 2 days. Yep. And it's not like it was.
That was just coming to an end when I was a kid, because I remember some of the video rental stores still having VCRs for rent, and they also had like NESs and Super NESs for rent. Oh. So like that was just beginning to come to an end.
See, I remember not renting. I didn't rent like any of the Nintendo stuff, but I remember renting Neo Geo and so what was that other one that was out at that time? But I remember renting that and like getting a couple games and then taking it home for the weekend and playing it.
I always wanted to. My parents would never go for it. You have a Nintendo at home? Yes, but this is a Super Nintendo.
Do you not understand what Super means? So
it's like that AVGN video. He's like, yeah, Dad, but this one has 16 bits. What the hell's a bit? I don't know.
But I mean, I would say this is before what we have now, as far as like, you know, like, oh, well, you just take the HDMI cord and, you know, you plug it into here and then you plug into the HDMI slot and you plug the, you know, the Blu-ray player in and you're done. Oh no. You know, it was like, oh, what kind of TV do you have? Does it still have knobs on it? You know? Does it have buttons? Oh, well, you've got to take you know, do you have like a coax splitter? Oh, well then, while the VCR is plugged in, you know, then you're not going to be able to watch any like cable because you're going to then plug the cable to plug that in. Oh man. And of course you'd have to pull the TV away from the wall. I mean, oh man, that's some crazy shit.
All that just to jack off, man, I tell you.
Well, I mean, obviously I'm gonna spring for the $500.
All that takes is some basic math class. I'll jack off every night.
But you know, that became that, you know, that was a thing, and it's kind of funny, you know, it's kind of like when 8-tracks came out, and you had, I'm sorry, I should say when cassettes came out. And you still had 8-tracks, and you had them both there at the same time, and it was like, you know, well, which one's gonna win? And you would think, well, cassette, obviously, because one, I can also record on it, which you couldn't do on 8-tracks. 8-tracks you can't rewind, which I still don't understand, like, what the idea was behind that was like, you can't rewind it, you know, it's just on a loop, so you just have to listen all the way through it. And I think you can fast forward, but of course, you know, you're fast forwarding it, you got to fast forward a little bit and stop and listen. Fast forward a little bit and stop and listen. And if you go too far, well, we're just listening to it from the middle of the song now because we can't rewind it. You know that you do, they pull the Toy Story, but like, oh, no, it's like, we're too far. We just got to keep going.
Bring around the horn.
Oh, so, I mean, obviously, like, cassette was going to win that, and it did. But at the time that that the VHS or VCR was out, or sorry, VHS and Betamax players, because you had, for a while you had both of them like on shelves at the same time. You also still had Laserdisc.
Yep.
And, Laserdisc were still superior quality, just as expensive, maybe a little bit more than VCRs. And, but some Laserdiscs had they had the really cool, like pictures on the disc themselves.
Yeah.
But also Laserdisc only had like, 45 minutes maybe of information on the side.
Really? So you would have to like flip sides mid-movie.
Or I don't know if you can flip the sides or if you had to just take it out and replace. So if you got a Laserdisc movie, and you may have been able to flip them, if you had a Laserdisc movie though, you would, like, depending on the movie, it would come in like a regular album sleeve.
Yeah.
But you would have like 3 discs in there sometimes. It was pretty wild. And I remember a guy that I knew that he lived kind of far away from me, but they had this like big house and stuff. It was almost like a barn type house, because he had like 2 or 3 siblings, and so and he read comic books. He was like big in comic books. We both were. So I remember we would go out to his house sometimes, and his parents had a Laserdisc player.
Yeah.
And so. And it was still like years after that. I'll tell you, my very first VCR, my aunt bought it for me. She gave me the money to get it for like my birthday one year. And this is in like the late 80s. And actually, I still have that. Wow. It's not plugged in, but it still runs.
Wow.
It's GE. It's a GE. It's a front loader, not a top loader. A front loader like a VHS player.
Nice.
So to bring us all back around and get it back to Boogie Nights is, and we've talked about this before, there were the format wars, between, the, VHS and Betamax. Yep. And which one was going to win. And, it ultimately went down to the porn industry because I remember when E.T. came out for sale on VHS, it was like $100-$200.
Wow.
Dude, when Terminator 2 came out on VHS, it was $100.
That's crazy.
And there was no DVD at the time. It was $100 when it came out for sale. I remember waiting like several months after it came out until I could get it from Blockbuster used. A used VHS copy, and then pay like maybe $14 for it or something like that. I'll tell you some bullshit too. And like a side note, if you ever lost a VHS, and you had to replace it, and of course they would go to catalog and say, okay, well, to replace this movie is going to be like X hundreds of dollars. Yeah. You couldn't just go and like, I lost this movie, and then like goes like, I bought it from like Walmart and here's everything. No, you had to get that one.
You had to get from their catalog.
Right, from their catalog.
That's stupid.
That's some shit.
That is some shit.
Maybe it's a part of their inventory and tracking and stuff like that. It has to be like the non-retail version or something. But I mean, whatever. Yeah. Luckily, I never lost one.
Yeah, you better not at that point.
But yeah, so it basically came down to whoever, whichever format the porn went behind, or like back, because even though all these other movies were costing a lot, porn was not costing that much. It wasn't. They weren't doing it, I guess, in the same fashion that the bigger places doing it. And then, of course, if the mob is bootlegging their stuff, right, and selling it, then of course you can get it all at much cheaper. And of course, you're not talking about high production values as far as that all that stuff goes either. So you're able to get it at a much cheaper cost. So like that's selling. That's really kind of back in like keeping the industry going as far as that like whole movie market, because everything else is unless you're super rich, everything else is just rental. Right. So the thing is that when you had the format wars later between the HD disc and the Blu-ray, then it actually
that was going down between PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, because Sony created the Blu-ray, and then I forget who it was that did HD. I can't remember but yeah, it was going kind of like that, and because all the Sony ones were all like, the PlayStations play Blu-ray disc, and it's like, and it really came down to people just sat back and was like, okay, which one is the porn industry going to back?
Right.
And they backed Blu-ray, and HD died. It's funny.
Unlimited power.
So if you knew the history of the VHS and Betamax, then you just sat back and just watched them. It's like, okay, which one?
That is pretty interesting.
It's fascinating. So
it's weird. I mean, I watch my share of porn, but I really don't watch a ton of like the professional stuff with like a plot and a story and all that. Yeah. Not much to say beyond that.
I was gonna say,
what are you into, listener? Comment down below.
I almost feel like a Banky kind of thing. It's like, if I'm gonna watch, then it really depends on what kind of a mood I'm in. Like, to be like, all I need is something visual to just like, to just like supercharge my brain. And then other times it's like, I need something stimulating. So it's like what is it? Do I just need like a visual? Be like, oh, bam, tits. Or
sometimes I gotta like run the bubble bath, light some scented candles.
I told her run a bubble bath and float in a motherfucker like a hovercraft until I call you back. That's for you, Stax. That's one of his favorite lines from Kanye. Anyway, so getting back to Boogie Nights, there's that whole thing where the 70s are ending, so there's no more of the the theaters, or the guy saying like, this is going to be the new wave here, and he's trying to get on the cusp of it and say, this is it. Jack's not by it, but it's like when we're watching this, even if you don't know the porn industry, when you're watching, if you know history, you know that what's coming in the next couple of years is when they start to clean up Times Square. And they got rid of all that stuff. So people that aren't aware, you look at Times Square now, you see like the Virgin Mega Store and the M&M store and all that kind of stuff, and the Big Show. It's like, a prime example, the end of Captain America. When he comes running out of the place and he's standing right in Times Square and spinning around, all you see are like these big like LED billboards and like I don't say neon, but neon just stuff all lit up.
Yeah.
If you go back and you just like, do like a Google search of like Times Square like 1983. Yeah. I think I told you that I was on that school field trip where we went to go see Les Miserables.
Yep.
And my friend Price, he got the picture taken of getting frisked at Trump Tower.
Yep.
And we actually, I don't know where the picture is, but we actually took a picture in front of a porno theater in Times Square. It was like 2 blocks from the Y, and there we were. And then of course, like I said, it wasn't long. Wasn't long after that. Like I said, it was starting. The cleanup was starting, but then just like Times Square was nothing like it was. So if you knew that was coming, you see this like your dream of theaters is going to be going away no matter what.
Right.
So, but I said it to you that they're referencing No Country for Old Men, where both these movies have this scene that the 70s end and the 80s start, and it's like the end of an era. It's like like everything changes now. This new decade starts off, and everything's completely different.
And in the case of Boogie Nights, like everything changes. Like visually, the plot takes a turn. Everything is different with the characters. Like it feels like a tangibly different movie at that point.
Yeah,
and I know typically with a lot of these you should watches or you shouldn't watches, we'll like go over the plot, and I don't want to do that with this one. I just want to tell people, watch the movie. So like, don't want to spoil anything, but the New Year's scene is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I would say you don't see it coming.
No.
It's because, and the thing is, everything as it's going along, I will say the New Year's scene is really what changes. Like the tone of the film shifts,
right,
and becomes a lot more dramatic and serious. Because before then, you just see them all just kind of having fun. They're partying, they're making lots of money, And it's like it's that kind of like fantasy of like what you think the porn industry would be like. I get to fuck bitches and make money and and do some coke maybe, or it's like yeah, it's like you're just playing like Joe Hollywood until the wheels fall off, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, but here's the other side of that, welcome to the new year.
Here's what happens when the fun is over.
Yeah, and the thing is, the movie when the fun's going on, it's builds up. It's dropping these threads. It's like, I'm just gonna put a pin in this here, and we're gonna come back to it, like the phone call scene during the party.
Right.
I mean, it seems like it's just like there, and and so when the phone call happens and they're asking around, did you know who they were looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because she tried calling him earlier.
Right.
So I knew about that connection there.
So I mean, it's a nice. I mean, I figured you did, but because there's like you don't know her real name,
right?
And all that stuff. Obviously, who else would be calling there? But you don't know her real name, so like it's you may think they're depending on how invested you are in the movie, you may think that they're looking for someone else or who knows what. But
it took me like a couple of seconds, but then I put two and two together.
So we talked about a tremendous cast. Not gonna rattle out everybody, but so we've got Burt Reynolds, Mark Wahlberg, Heather Graham, Julianne Moore. Yeah, God, Heather Graham. Oh,
call me girl.
I'm just saying. I mean, like because we're around the same age. I already loved Heather Graham from License to Drive. Yes, Mercedes. She was just, oh my goodness, she's just like scrumptious in that movie. And then of course you move on to like some like Boogie Nights. Well, actually, before Boogie Nights, I think it was before Boogie Nights. It was maybe Lost in Space came after Boogie Nights, but still, it's just So yeah, Heather Graham. Yeah. And then when I saw her in like The Hangover, the first Hangover movie, I was like, oh, she's still got it. And I think she's in a couple episodes of Scrubs. She plays like one of the doctors that comes in.
Wow.
I think I remember seeing her in that. So yeah. Anyway, got Don Cheadle in there. John C. Reilly.
Love John C. Reilly.
and I was kind of building up to him. And I got to mention Luis Guzman. I mentioned his name several times. Who I really love as an actor. I think he's great. But John C. Reilly, like early on, we basically commented, there was like, John C. Reilly's character in the movie is basically his stepbrother's character if he was a porn star.
Yeah. I mean, just their whole dialogue about working out and stuff just killed me. Yeah. Because we've talked about that like on the podcast as well, where like one of my favorite things I've seen with people trolling people is just adding one more to their exercise set. It's like, oh yeah, I do 51 push-ups a day, so, it's like that thing. So he was doing that shit where he was like, oh, I squat 250. It's like, it's like such a dick move.
I love when Eddie, who changes his name to Dirk Diggler.
Yeah.
When Dirk is talking to him and he says, he's like, you work out? He's like, yeah, I work out at this place, on Torrance. He's like, yeah. He's like, you ever work out at this place? No, you wouldn't, because I would have seen you there. Because I'm there every day. Well, he's like, he just told you he works at a place in Torrance where he lives. Like, no, he's never been there. It's like,
it's so good. I love his character.
So one of the things I liked about this movie, is you were talking about how they make you care about everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So Buck is this guy in search of an identity, who works at a music store, a stereo equipment store.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really know much about stereo equipment. But kind of like believes he does, or maybe tries to convince himself that he does.
Right.
Because this is the highest the fidelity you can get.
This is hi-fi. That means high fidelity. You know what that means? It means it's the highest fidelity you can get.
And it's like, it's like brings up by like, like several like quads. But when Buck meets the girl, their conversation, the little bits that you hear amongst that party setting where they kind of moves back and forth between people, that conversation it's just enough in the back and forth to let you know or to key you in that this is something that's going to grow.
Right, right.
So then when you see them later on and they're together, you're not surprised because it's already set up that, he's found somebody that he can talk to or, so
that he can be comfortable with.
Right. And you see that with a lot of the people where it's like, it's just enough there to kind of like, okay, now I don't really have to tell you anything about this person, but I can give you enough here that kind of fills you in and says, okay, I know where this person is going from here. Mm-hmm. And then we can pick it back up with them later without having to fill in a bunch of stuff or keep touching back, and taking away focus from the main, I don't want to say main characters, but the main storyline characters.
Right, right.
It's also interesting to see, again, without knowing your history, or even if you don't know your history, to see the evolution of drugs too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And see how they move from coke, and there's a lot of coke being done in this movie.
Yeah.
When the guy is
like,
talking,
it makes Pulp Fiction look tame.
It doesn't hit the level of Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, boom. But when the guy's telling the story, like, she must have done like 20 lines. If I'm like, who does that much coke?
Right, Ozzy.
No, but I mean, Ozzy only did 15 lines of coke and he did like 5 lines of ants. So let's be fair. When he says, well, I did 20 lines of coke, like, no, you didn't. You did 15 lines of coke. And I think you did like 4 lines of ants and 1 line of Beatles.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. It's like, I think I just had John, Paul, and Ringo. But then when you see the scene with Roller Girl and Amber later, and they're just hitting it, man, mm-hmm. Just bam! It's like, oh damn, holy shit!
Yeah,
maybe I don't want to go to the '80s after all.
Ooh.
But you see coke is a big deal, and of course from the '70s, coke was a big deal, mm-hmm. And then you start to see like crystal meth come in.
Yep.
And then you see crack come in. And it's interesting. Not that drugs are great, but it's interesting to see how
drugs are fun. Do drugs, everybody. It's what you should have learned from Breaking Bad. Is if you get really good at cooking meth, you get a hot goth girlfriend. So,
excuse me. You delivered a different message the other day in the podcast, and I just want to make sure that you're not sending a mixed message out there. Because whatever you say, you're going to stand behind that, and that message is going to be the same every time.
Of shit, dude.
So you just said do drugs, everybody. Last time you said do drugs, kids. So
get started early, but it's never too late to start.
Okay, okay, that's fine. No, that's fine. Okay, so you were talking about the people that are kids nowadays, and then the people that were kids earlier. They're like, hey,
and the young at heart, anybody. Really.
Don't stop doing drugs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't stop till you get enough.
Yeah, keep on with the funk stuff. So, and the thing is, not that coke it's an okay drug. Like, oh, coke's fine. Coke doesn't mess anybody up. No,
coke will fuck you up.
No, but then you see these people are kind of maintaining their life for the most part mm-hmm. with coke, and you just see like when the other drugs come in, it's like, oh, you thought it was coke? No, baby, no, I ain't coke.
Yeah, like you definitely see like very distinctive turning point with the meth, and they're like, no, you don't want to do a line of that. Just do a bump. And he's just like, shut up. And then, like, the next day he can't get it up. And he's like, oh, God, no.
Right.
I just ended my own career.
Yeah, and you just see, like, the agitation and desperation that comes with that. Mm-hmm. And there's I don't think it's a major plot point. So I'll say this. Dirk gets a pretty badass vet. And then later on, they're talking about doing something, selling some stuff to get some money, and he's like, it's enough to get the vet fixed. Yep. And you think, okay, not a big deal. They show the vet, and you can see that because I think the vet hood opens from the windshield up, right? That particular one.
I think so.
So you can see, right. So you can see that from where the windshield is connected to the door, that it's lifted up a little bit. It's not laying flush.
Right.
So you say, okay, something's wrong with the vet, and it's probably something with the hood or the engine or whatever. and then you see the vet later, and it's fucked up, you know.
Yeah.
But you don't see any of that stuff before, and you don't really realize. And then we say like, oh yeah,
Yep.
like their life has really changed. There's a dramatic change in that.
Yep.
And I think I will say that it does have a kind of happy ending of sorts, you know.
Yeah.
So the movie kind of takes you on this roller coaster, and then like kind of like brings you back, you know, like a roller coaster. It takes you up, it takes you down, and then if it's a really good roller coaster, you think somewhere along the way, oh shit, we're gonna die.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the air brakes kick in, just you know, and you're like, okay.
It's a happier ending. It's one of those things where it's like they're not in a perfect situation.
Right.
Because it still has lost its heart and soul. Like, he's still just kind of phoning it in. Like, the director is still just kind of phoning it in because it's like, well, these are still just VHS. But it is like, they're starting to rebuild. They're starting to come back together and realize that they can get back to where they were, so.
And the main thing of it, I think, is like, the whole thing about it before, like, if you look at it, it's like, the heart of it is, we're a family, an unconventional family.
Right,
we're a family. And it's when that family breaks up that things fall apart. And then they all come back together. And then, like you say, it's like, we're not back where we used to be, but we're back together again. And that's enough to kind of hopefully carry us, you know, where we need to go.
Right, right.
So I mentioned the thing with Buck, and I was going to mention somebody else, you know, Becky's in it. You don't really get a lot of time with Becky. And I'm not going to mention Little Bill because Little Bill's his own little separate story. But there was one other person I wanted to mention, and I just want to get your thoughts, and kind of let you kind of like expound on them a bit. And that's my man Scotty J.
Scotty J. Remind me of his character?
Scotty J.
I'm bad with names, dude. Celebrity facial blindness.
Well, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, Scotty J.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I wish you guys could see Acomi's face right now. He's at his pinched lip look, and his head's like nodding up and down like, fuck you, Turk.
There's not much for me to expound on with that.
Now, when you first saw Scotty J, you said that he reminded you of who? The awkwardness?
Oh, yeah. I said he reminded me of Chris from Family Guy.
Yeah, and he does.
He does. He even has like the quaver in his voice.
the long kind of scraggly hair, you know, being overweight,
the body type, the tight shirts.
Yeah, and yeah,
you look really good, man.
And the just kind of weird the awkwardness for no reason.
Yeah,
it's not even a nervous awkwardness. It's just more of just like a. It's. I think for Scotty, so, you know, they don't explicitly state, you know, at the beginning, but it's kind of like put out there like, Scotty's probably gay, you know?
Yeah.
And then you kind of get some hints that Scotty's gay. And I think that's where that weird awkwardness comes in, is where he's not really sure of it himself, or maybe just hasn't really accepted it himself. And so when he sees someone like Dirk, who, you know, when he first sees Dirk, when he shows up at the pool party, and the camera, the vision just zooms in, just blocks everybody else and just zooms in on Turk, you know, like you're looking through like a telescope or something like that.
Right.
It just like zooms in right on him. You know, it's like it was like a target.
He's holding the boom mic going.
Yeah, when he sees Turk's like talent, like it was just like it was like this palatable like response to it. And I will say, you know, I love everyone's reactions to seeing the talent.
The absolute best was the Admiral.
The Colonel?
The Colonel, yeah, Colonel.
Especially when he gets that weird grin on his face.
Yeah.
And he's like,
thank you, Dirk.
And when they show what's it, Ricky Jay and William H. Macy, because they haven't seen it yet,
right,
for the first day of filming, and And then they just kind of like look. I like how Ricky Jay moves his eye for away from the eyepiece of the camera, as if like he's not sure what he's seeing, and he goes back, and they're both just like, "Wow, yeah, it's bad." And then that scene, the line,
which line?
Where they're filming the scene, and Amber says, "Let me take a look at this."
Oh yeah,
and she goes.
Yep, that's a gigantic cock.
It's the way it's so flat. It's just like, this is a gigantic cock.
So good.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's like, yeah, they do like the whole intentionally bad acting in that, which is exactly what those older pornos were like.
Oh, the Thomas Jane's character, if you didn't know it was Thomas Jane, the haircut, the big, thick, horrible, like 70s mustache, he is almost unrecognizable.
Yeah.
In that. And then of course the later scene with Alfred Molina, which is it's probably one of my favorite scenes. It to me, it just builds so much tension.
It does.
And it grabs you like by the chest, and it's like, it's one of those things where you've been at watching a movie that you get sucked into it, and like you're afraid to breathe because you don't want you don't want them to hear you breathing, right? It's like I don't want to move or anything else because I don't want them to like find out where the person is, or
you just want the shit to blow up just so that you can stop the tension.
Yes.
It reminded me of that tense scene in Baby Driver with the diner.
Oh yeah.
Where just like, and there's no payoff on that. Nothing ever pops off there. The scene just ends and it's like, oh God, there was no release to the tension.
He's saying, I still got you on the line. It's like, it's just like being caught in a fish hook. Like, you think you're getting away, and then
Yep.
It's like, oh no, wait, shit, I'm still caught.
That's the first thing that scene made me think of was the Baby Driver thing, where it's just like, who's gonna say something? Like what's Bat's gonna say to Debbie or whatever, and it was that kind of thing. It also reminded me of like the final scene of True Romance.
You're talking about that scene.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about the later scene with Buddy.
Oh no, because that does have payoff.
Well, yeah, but they just kind of get away.
They do.
Yeah,
but yeah, there's like a release there. That scene with Bats where he's just like, yeah, our friend here was saying he didn't really like this place, said the food wasn't that good. What's the deal with that? And just like all that.
This seemed that bad to me.
Just, oh man, that scene is just so damn tense.
It is. I will say that when you do, in my opinion, I would say you do get a payoff to that scene later on, but it's not a true payoff because like, You've had to work through the tension yourself, so this isn't a release. It's more of like, here's the valve, like afterwards, which is like it only takes like 4 words to spell your name, Leon. I mean, that to me would be the release. But by that point, man, it's like, well, shit, I didn't need you now. That's like when you're choking and you give yourself like a self-Heimlich against a chair, and then someone comes running over there, but like, I got you, but like,
just patting you on the back.
Like, too late, Luther. Too late. But it's like I said, Boogie Nights, like I said, it's one of my favorite movies. It's a long movie, but it does kind of grab you and hold you in. Mm-hmm. And again, I know people are going to look and be like, I think you guys are trying to find something that's not there, talking about this whole family like angle and stuff like that. And I can see where some people may get caught up in the peripheral and kind of lose the focus of that main part there. But I would say that another thing that kind of draws it in to say these people are connected, even when they're not together, they're connected. Mm-hmm. And what would that connection be? It can only be, like I said, that family. Even though it's not your traditional sense of family. And that's
what that whole scene is about, where all those things are happening to everybody simultaneously.
And that's what I was getting to. Is that part right there.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine. Is that those things are all happening to them, like I said, simultaneously. One of the great things I like about that is, you've got, actually, there's another movie that's kind of like that, where as one like situation is ending and we're kind of like panning away from it, we pan to the other situation, which is like not too far away, or maybe like, close enough.
The first Ninja Turtles movie did that, where April's touring them around the junk shop while Rapha's getting the shit kicked out of him by the foot.
Right, and I was thinking more of like where like the I'm trying to think of a good, because I didn't want to talk about this one where like the one character is moving away and they end up moving past where the next character is.
Yeah, well, all three of them pass at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, in that same spot.
But I was going to say, the thing I like about that is that there's no connection to them. So you don't see like the one character, you know, in distress, like in the frame when the others are like kind of like moving by or whatever. Almost is like, oh, he's like, you're so close to, you know.
Yeah.
It's like
you almost saw what was happening. Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's like each one of them is going through their own individual like pain and hell. And it's like, and you were close, you know, but it's, I think part of it also is them they're being close, you know, right. that whole shared connection thing. But it's, I know, I just really like the movie. It's
yeah.
And it's got some serious emotional scenes to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the, you know, you talk about because I've mentioned to you, like the whole stigma around porn, I really don't like. And I mean, I could talk about that, you know, forever, and go into all these things. But I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about people that are doing a job just like anybody else does a job, you know? You know, you may not like the job that they do, and that's fine, you know, but I was gonna say, there are jobs out there that people do that you don't like, but you don't treat them like shit because they do it.
Unless they're politicians.
Yeah. So, you know, you know, but when it comes to the porn industry, it's like, it's so much different. It's like, you know, these people deserve our ridicule and, you know, and scorn, and don't need to be treated like real people. Right, and if anything bad happens to them, it's like, well, that's because you do this. I'm like, really? But okay. But
what amazes me is seeing that type of stigma and seeing some of the shit people say online, and it's like, motherfucker, you know you watch porn.
Right.
It's like, if you can jerk off to it, then you can respect it as a real job. So just, you know, piss off with that.
Yeah. And, you know, and for all the porn is and isn't, you know, how often do you hear about porn scandals? Mm-hmm. And how often do you hear about other Hollywood scandals? Right. I mean,
well, there's not a whole lot to scandals. Like, you already know they're all fucking. So.
But I was the reason I was even bringing that up is that there's the scene, you know, where Buck goes to the bank, and the whole thing is just like, I don't like you for who you are. Right. It's almost like a new type of racism, you know. And it's like, I don't like you for who you are. It has nothing to do with this. And he keeps trying to say, this has nothing to do with that.
Right.
And the guy keeps bringing it back. It's like, we don't support this. This is not connected to that at all. Like, we don't support this, you know. It would be almost be in a sense where, like, he goes to take his wife to the hospital. Like, my wife's having a baby, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, like, we don't have anything to do with the porn industry. My wife's not in it, she's just my wife. Right, you know, it's like, yeah, but no, we don't deliver like porn babies. Like, what? Like, no, this has nothing to do with that. Like, but it's basically, I don't like you. So
right,
you know.
Yeah.
But that's like a realistic aspect of, you know, their life.
Oh, absolutely.
Back then or now.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, people say some like horrific shit about porn stars online.
It's kind of sad. I remember, you know, because I watched I don't want to say a lot, but I've watched a few documentaries, and I remember this one. I couldn't tell you which one it was, and I think it was Brianna Banks was in it, and she was talking about like what brought her to the porn industry and how, you know, I don't remember what it was that her and her sister were on their own. I don't remember if they left because their parents were, you know, not good people, or, you know, if they just, their parents were dead, or they, you know, whatever. But her sister was younger. I think she was like 19, 20, and her sister was like maybe 15, 16, something like that. Mm-hmm. And she's trying to support them, and she didn't have money, and she doesn't really have, experience as far as like job experience, because she's still fairly young. And I think she was got a job as like maybe a stripper or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then she did like some modeling and then that, she did some porn and she's like, I was in the industry for a while and it was good for what it was, but she's like, the one thing that I credit it for is that it gave me the means to be able to take care of myself and support my sister, make sure my sister could go through school. It put a house over our heads at the time when I couldn't find anything else to do that, and it's just like any other job. It's got its good and its bad and you work through it, the best you can. Mm-hmm. And then it afforded me the opportunity to be able to, save up enough money to when I was ready to move on to a new career. I could, so, I find that kind of stuff fascinating. That's not everybody's experience, but then, I left a job 4 or 5 years ago that I just wasn't right for me anymore. Mm-hmm. And there's still people that I know that work there, and whether it's still right for them or not, they do. I liked it for a time, and then time came, didn't really care for it anymore, and I don't think it cared for me either. It's just like, well, shit, ain't we both content?
Right.
But I mean, I say there's people there that work there and they still love it, and there's people that work there and like, I don't really like it, but this is where I am. So you can like put that on anything. But so like I said, when people have like this kind of like preconceived notion about it, I'm like, at the end of the day, there's still people and they're living their lives, however they can, and you don't have to agree with it, Yeah,
I saw a conversation about it online where somebody was like, oh, but these people are selling their bodies, and it's like, so are you to your company. Like, you still have to be present at your company 40 hours a week, busting your ass doing something that you don't necessarily want to do for money. So how are you not selling your body?
And it's and I get it's like, well, they're engaging in these things, and I'm like, yeah, but and you can say things like, well, it's not what you think it is. Where okay, you guys are gonna have sex and we're gonna film you, and then it's done. It's like, no, it's like it's just like they even talk about it in Boogie Nights, like, hey, Ricky J keeps going on about it. It's like, well, we gotta get the lighting, gotta get this, we gotta do that. You've got to block the shot, you got to make sure the lighting's correct, you got to do this, you got to do that, and then you got to do camera angles. So it's just like any other like a movie in a sense where we shoot this for a while, and then we stop and we're going to switch angles. We got to change the change the lighting and stuff to fit that, and then we do all that stuff. So it's not like it's just people just continually having sex for like an hour and then you're done. No, it's a lot of like start and stop. And I mean, I just imagine if you like for a guy, if you were like having sex with a girl, and then like in the middle of it or like 15 minutes in, she like stopped to take a phone call,
right?
and she takes like a 10-minute phone call, and the whole time she's sitting there taking a phone call, you're just sitting around, just trying to stay hard, I'm like, and then when the phone call's over, she's like, oh, let's get back into it, Now where were we? Like, I mean, and then you do that for next, and then you're like, okay, okay, now I gotta stop and everything. Let me go walk the dog real quick, and then I'll be right back. And like, okay, well, and again, the whole time you're like, oh, gotta stay hard. Stay hard. Or if you don't, like, it's like when she's ready to go again, it's like, okay, gotta get hard. And then, believe it or not, it's true. They're for porn stars, they're what they call like a no list, where they'll tell their agent, and yes, people have agents. They'll tell their agent like, this person is on my no list, right? Like I will not do any scenes with them, which can make it difficult, if like if there's a scene that coming up is like, oh well, this is the person that we have for this scene, so we need to find the partner for them, and if they're on your no list, I guess that won't be you. They said they have their no list, but sometimes the person may not be on your no list, which is generally it's for the women. It's someone that they've been in a scene with that didn't obey their boundaries. I don't do this to me, don't do that to me. Don't smack my ass, don't pull my hair. Don't take about my feet, whatever it is. And then that person may end up doing that, and they're like, hey. I told you not. And they could persist, and then so you're like, okay, no, I'm not working with that.
Right.
but your person may not be on your no list, but you just may not like them. Like, I don't like you. Like you're like, you're respectful, but I just don't like you. You may not like them as a person.
You just may not have that synergy or whatever.
Right. But then you still got to be able to, like, okay, I've either got to get aroused for you or I've got to get hard for you because, we got to do a scene together and, no matter what everybody else thinks, we are actors, right?
Right.
And I mean, because we're talking about Boogie Nights, we're talking specifically about porn, but what's that movie, The Notebook? Like Rachel McAdams and...
The Notebook.
No, but yeah, it's got, what's that guy's name? Crap. Is it, Ryan?
Shit, Ryan? Yeah, I know.
Ryan Gosling.
Oh, yeah, Ryan Gosling's in The Notebook?
Yeah. He's the,
Blonde Ryan Reynolds?
Well, no. See, yeah, Ryan Gosling, the guy that played, Hercules in Adventures of Young Hercules. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you people not know about that? Did so many people out there not know that there was a TV series called The Adventures of Young Hercules and that Ryan Gosling played young Hercules? No? Oh, well, now you do.
Yeah. Now you know. Knowing is half the battle.
Acomi and Turk!
Yeah, I think one reason that we have an easier time kind of understanding that this is a real job and a real art form is because we've actually, like, made videos and stuff and made films and things like that.
Yeah. Sorry, just showing Acomi a picture from Young Hercules, which there were 50 episodes from 1998 to 1999.
Grief.
30-minute series.
It's a long fucking time to be making a show.
And I don't know for a fact, but I think this was tied to the like Hercules Kevin Sorbo show.
Wow.
I don't know for a fact. I think it was.
Whew. Wow. Yeah.
But I'm sorry. Go on, and I'll finish up with what I was saying about Ryan Gosling.
Well, that was about it. Just like I think that it's, I think when you know exactly how fucking stressful it can be to try to shoot something.
Mm-hmm.
And, even with us, just making like a 10 or 20 minute video, it's stressful as hell. And it's very, very labor intensive, and it is a labor of love. And so, like, couple that with, yes, you do have to actually be, like, actively exhibiting a chemistry with somebody, and you do have to stay hard that entire time. It's like, yeah, no, it would suck.
Yeah. And I mean, so I know this, if you tell somebody, you're going to say, well, that sounds easy. But it's not easy. And it seems like it'd be really easy. But picture this. You're filming a scene and the scene calls for you to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what my scene called for. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they think it's very easy and I wake up. But when you wake up in the morning, tell me.
Feeling like P. Diddy?
No, sorry. I was like, you know what? I'm glad I don't know any of the lines to that song because I don't want to feed into that.
Grab your glasses and hit the door. You're going to hit the city.
Like when you wake up in the morning, I mean, how often do you really just kind of like take stock of like, okay, this is what it feels like to wake up?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do your eyes flutter and you wake up, or do you just kind of like you just pop open, you sit up in bed, or so someone says, okay, now camera's on you, you're going to wake up and then, or even someone's going to shake you and wake you up, right? Mm-hmm. How do you do that? Do you like push them or go away? Or do you like say, what? Or you like, it's like, I didn't come on you, Peter, I swear. Like what is, that's from James Bob Straight Back. But I'm just saying, like, how do you wake up? I mean, it may seem like it's really simple, but have you ever just paid attention to yourself waking up? Like, no, you haven't. So then when someone tells you to do that, like, how do you do it? And I was like, oh, this is really, I'm going to wake up. I'm like, shit, how am I going to like, when am I going to do to wake up?
The thing is, when I wake up, I'm too tired to actually observe what it is I'm doing. So,
right. So can you really then go back and be like, okay, so this is how it was when I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams did not like each other during the making of The Notebook. And apparently from accounts that I've read, that it was so bad that, that the director had to stop and had to like call a counselor and had to have counseling sessions with them to get them to get over this. After that, they actually dated for a while. But prior to that, they didn't like each other. So you had two people that don't like each other in a romantic movie where they got to look longingly into each other's eyes and say, these things about how much they care for one another, right? And then kiss them. And they're like, I'd rather drive a nail through my dick than to do this, So if they can do it and be acting, then these people, are actors too, whether they want to accept it or not. And don't be like, well, they're not having sex on screen. Well, okay. Well, Mickey Rourke and Carrie Otis had sex on screen when, they were making, it wasn't 9.5 weeks. It was that other one. I mean, I
know the one you're talking about. But...
There are numerous reports of actors having sex on camera, for like studio theatrical movies.
Yeah, for authenticity's sake. Mm-hmm. Didn't Halle Berry do that too?
I think there were rumors of her and Billy Bob Thornton, but
God, I didn't realize it was Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh yeah, for Monsters Ball.
Wow.
Make me feel good. Make me feel good. Yeah, for Monsters Ball. That's who she got it on with.
Wow. Okay. I mean, you do you, I guess. More power to you.
Well, hey, she won an Academy Award. I mean, Angelina Jolie was married to him, and she won an Academy Award too. So people are like, "Wow, these women actually really make us think that they like Billy Bob Thornton. That's amazing. They deserve an Academy Award."
I guess Billy Bob Thornton's like a good luck charm,
That's why he and I started dating. Well, at first we were just fucking. I'm trying to turn it into something more. He's hesitant, but I'll wear him down. Anyway, so that's all. I'm done with that part. But anyway, yeah, I know a lot of people probably stay away from Boogie Nights when they see what the subject matter is. But it's not like they're like giving you like a history of it. They're let's take you through a tour of the porn industry. Right.
And really, it's not even glorifying it. Yeah. It's just using it as a backdrop. We've been going for an hour and 6 minutes.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll bring it back around to if you can jack off to it, then you're not too good for it, It's pretty much as simple as that. You're not better than these people. And, if you are one of those people who just doesn't watch porn, doesn't masturbate, whatever, if you're just living that kind of puritanical lifestyle, maybe if you actually came once in a while, you wouldn't have such a stick up your ass.
I'm sorry. If you're one of those people, how the hell did you find this podcast? And why the hell are you listening?
Get the fuck out of here, narc.
We don't care much for you. We don't take kindly to your kind around here. But I was gonna say, if nothing else, you have to watch the movie for two scenes. One is when they're showing some of the scenes from the what's his name? Brock Landers.
Yeah.
Brock Landers was it Angels in My City movie where he and his what was that line? It's like when he's gonna kill me, and he's like breaks the thing. Psh, you're not even worth it.
Yeah. It's good.
They're like bad porn acting in the movie is just beautiful. Mm-hmm. That and when they're the music studio recording session.
Yes, that's what I was going to bring up if you didn't. He does a cover of You've Got the Touch that is right on the level of Chris Chan's cover.
I have to think his is just a little bit better than Chris Chan's.
A little bit. Yeah. He can carry, I mean, like Chris Chan goes flat right when he goes, "You got the power!" And it's like, it's really not listenable, but...
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It's still a doozy of a cover.
It is the absolute best. I was gonna say one thing, and I'm trying to think of. I think Boogie Nights came before True Romance, but reminiscent, not a copy or even an homage, but reminiscent. The scene with Alfred Molina and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's reminiscent to me in a sense of the scene in True Romance with Drexel. So you got the crazy white guy in the bathrobe, right?
Yeah.
And you got the drugs. You got the large heavyset guy who's his like bodyguard with the gun, and you got a person that doesn't belong there who is not necessarily up to no good, but is there to like fuck things up for you.
Yep. It did remind me of that scene. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody needs to watch True Romance too.
Oh God, yes, True Romance is.
That is a spectacular film. But yeah, no, I mean, I say, give Boogie Nights a shot. Definitely check out those two scenes.
Yeah, if nothing else.
And yeah, if you like those, then give the rest of it a shot, because it's a pretty long, involved watch, but it is really good.
Oh yeah, and it's so dramatic and so suspenseful. I think if you watch the first 30 minutes of the movie, after that you really can't turn away. Right.
But yeah, I think we better land this plane, wrap up this episode. And hey, thanks for giving us a listen, everybody.
And after watching this, I think I'm going to change my views. I have no interest in doing coke anymore. I don't.
That's good, Turk. Personal growth. I'm proud of you.
Yes. I'm on the meth.
On to meth. Jesse, don't talk to the UN, Jesse.
So, yep. Thank you all, everyone, and let's just keep rocking and rolling.
I'm a star. I'm a big shining star. Bye, everybody.
All right there, folks. That was Our Moms Think We're Funny. Let's give them a hand.